Here.
Director Guzman, Director Antrim.
All right.
Chair, you do not have a point.
And let the record reflect that Director Chadrick Kendi has joined us as well. And as we have no action items, we will proceed with our presentation item. Chief Audit Executive Ed Sutherland, please provide the board's second quarter audit department updates. Ed, please proceed.
Thank you so much. We did have one very important report that's been issued between quarter one and now. It's occupational safety. Just a few things before we get into the content of the report. The final report was issued. This report only encompassed post-incident reactive controls only. Occupational safety is such an encompassing large issue, especially taken in the context of utility-wide. So we decided to break it up into post-incident controls, reactive, basically what we have in place to mitigate after an accident happens, and proactive controls before the actual accident. So anyway, this particular report was for reactive controls only. The scope included accident response and containment, severity mitigation, incident recordation and investigation, and the differentiation, classification of accidents and near misses. And for the purposes of this review, as well as this report, we use the broad term incidents, and I had that little Venn diagram in the corner. It includes accidents and near misses. And of course, these can be defined different ways and in different contexts, but in general, an accident is an undesired, unplanned event in which someone was injured or there was destruction of property. A near miss is an incident in which, of course, still undesired, still unplanned, but there was no injury and there was no destruction of property, but aside from a certain couple of events, certainly could have been. So that is a near miss. Okay. We found that in general, we have some strong controls surrounding reactive controls within the utility. We did note 5 findings. First was training records. We noted a lack of training records documentation to support the ARB hearings and resultant meeting records. The ARB is the Accident Review Board. The Accident Review Board meets once a month, and they adjudicate each accident case that occurs in that past month. So they could result in disciplinary action for an employee, could result in a recommendation of further training for that employee. A number of things could be determined as a result of these hearings. But we noted that the training documentation wasn't being provided within the case packet to the ARB committee members consistently. Getting to the root cause of this, it was just an incidence of disparate departments not really talking to each other enough. So we have employee relations. Our training unit here keeps all here at St. Joe, which reports up through HR and the CAO or organization. They keep, in general, employee training records, but like CDL licensing and things like that, that's kept up by GSO out at Central Yard. So our recommendation was for them to get together once a month, get those training records to the ARB before packets go out and before hearings are done. The second issue was ARB supervisor participation. We know that supervisors are regularly absent from the Accident Review Board hearings, despite their attendance being required by the ARB policy. They are required for a number of reasons. That's one of the 2 bigger ones are, number one, they could provide, if they're there, they could provide another account of the incident. And secondly, they should know whether their employees are adequately prepared for their job preparedness, and they can lend some knowledge in that regard to the ARB committee members when adjudicating these cases. We conceded in the report that this is not as high of a risk for vehicular accidents. Obviously, in that instance, we have situations where we have a police report, we have a third-party account of what happened. So, but we did note that it is important for them to show up, and they haven't been. So our recommendation is that for each non-vehicular absentee by a supervisor, a directive will be sent to their director as well as the associated LT member to make sure that they are present moving forward. And if not, then it will be taken into account for their performance review. Third is near miss reporting. Civil service rules addressing near misses suppress their identification, acknowledgement, and reporting by employees. This started one of those issues where we noted the initial issue and just really had to peel back the onion. We had 300 incidents last year utility-wide and only one near miss reported, just one. Mm-hmm. So we started to asking questions about why this was, and the initial thought was, well, we're substance abuse testing near misses like we do accidents. And when we start asking those questions, why, everyone said, well, that's what civil service says, that's what the rules say. So when we started digging deeper, why is that? Why are we substance abuse testing near misses? Because there's no injury, there's no accident, but we're abuse testing either way. We're sticking to concentra. And then we got to the crux of civil service's definition of a near miss. It's included in that negligence or some level of carelessness on the part of the employee is part of civil service's definition. So we are entirely reliant upon the employee's testimonial of the near miss in order to get it on record. So it has a chilling effect on reporting if you're making the employee concede to being careless or a safety violation, as well as making them go through substance abuse testing as a result, which is a giant deliverable on you and your manager, by the way. So we brought this issue. It's not usual that we have recommendations for individuals outside this organization, but I called civil service and they were very receptive. So they asked me to put it in the report as it would be anything else. Mm-hmm. And they're going to refer it to the commission for possible changes to the policy.
Okay, and I texted you something that'll have, and I want to read it into the record. I came at this from my background as a physician, and we have a very robust reporting system for not just medical errors, but near misses. And we categorize the near misses as A through I, and that sort of, and the way that goes is that you can have an error that had no capacity to cause a problem. You know, that's the lowest level, grade A. It still wasn't quite right, like, or you have an error that happened, but it didn't actually get to anybody or result in anything. But if you get something like an error that reached the person, but unlikely to cause harm, like they were admitted to the hospital and you didn't order the multivitamin. It's an error that the multivitamin wasn't ordered when they were admitted, but them not getting a multivitamin in the hospital is not going to cause any harm. So that's like a very low level grade C. And that goes all the way up to something that causes not just injury, but death and something that's unreversible. That definition helps people be more clear that there isn't always culpability or a bad outcome related to a near miss. Mm-hmm. And it actually has been very helpful at getting people to self-report in healthcare settings because they have a chance to say, well, yes, I didn't order the multivitamin, but not getting a multivitamin was not gonna leave anybody disfigured or destroyed. So I would like for us to think about a way to not just say we want to change how civil service sees this, but come up with a system where we can understand the difference between an error that doesn't have any likelihood of causing damage versus an error that's avoidable and could cause damage versus an error that was unavoidable that could cause damage, and so on and so on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And along those same lines, the National Safety Council says it should be two things: non-punitive. Near misses should be non-punitive, and they should be anonymous if they choose to be. Okay. So, yeah, that's great feedback, and that's consistent with what we've put in the report.
Okay.
Let's see. Incident definition, we noted that our safety directives do not include clear definitions for accidents and near misses. Obviously, we have to follow the definitions of what is in civil services rules, but we kind of put the caveat here that if they do remove near misses from substance abuse testing, we'll have to define them on our own. So we should define broadly what an accident is and what a near miss is. Clearly, you know, if you sprain your ankle in a ditch reading a meter versus you know, hurt yourself in a hole in Balance Street or versus, you know, spilling chlorine at the chem house, these are all accidents, but there are certain criteria for each of those that they should follow, right? So those need to be defined broadly, at least within our safety P&P, and right now that needs addressing. And the last issue would be near-miss data utilization. We need to have clear process as to how the near-miss data, if we do receive it, is utilized. Like I said, they should be non-punitive and anonymous if need be. Right now, we have an avenue for reporting that. We're not getting them. We're hoping these changes will lead to an uptick in those being reported, but how that data ends up being used. We're not suggesting, of course, this is not form over function. We shouldn't have an ARB or, for near misses, but some kind of formalized way that this data ends up being taken in, looked at, and then changed our processes if the safety department feels it is necessary for that context. And we added a sample policy from OSHA along with the report that our team can follow and use as a template.
Do we have a compliance line, an anonymous compliance line?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and what's the utilization of that like?
Oh, good question. That's I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but that would be for CAO.
Because if you're saying that we are not reporting near misses and our compliance line is not being used, that goes together. But if you tell me our compliance line is being used extensively, but there's no near misses, then I have questions what that compliance line is doing.
Right, right. Just a quick update on the other audits that we have going on right now. Warehouse controls, brass. This is detailed testing is still ongoing. Right now, I don't see any reason why this shouldn't be able to be presented at Q3. This would include the purchase, requisition, and inventory management of all new brass and copper, as well as the return, storage, and disposal of salvage. So that's any brass coming out of the ground for replacement. We have to have process for both of those. John Quell is doing great with it so far. Like I said, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have a report for that in Q3. And then
just again, there was a big incident in California last week where they stole brass out of all the Tesla chargers.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this is not a thing that's unique to us. This is not a thing that's unique to even just inventory stuff. They actually broke the actual charger and stole the brass out of the chargers.
Wow. For
the thing. So this is a thing. And I think it's, to me, a measure of economic distress for people, but that's a whole nother.
Right. Yeah. Our approach to this is, like I said, we don't ever want to have recommendations that have form over function, right? We need to have tight controls over the new inventory, but we can't expect to have the same level of controls over the salvage. But we do need to have some controlled process, right? Because that has value, and that's our property, and we're going to make sure that we're following it, as well as contractors, by the way. If they're working on GIRR or something like that, and a big piece of brass comes out, that needs to be brought to salvage because it's our property for salvage value. And lastly, the plumbing department. Review is underway. We are now started since Matthew finished safety, which is his first review. Now doing his second, so excited about that as well. Global IA standards, I'm working on doing the changes for that right now. Haven't rolled out anything just yet. We still have about 6 months before compliance for the first level is expected. And staffing, we are still looking at the compliance supervisor. We've had a couple of applicants, but the usual sticking point is not enough experience. We need 5 years of experience for the compliance supervisor, and we're going to explore some options with maybe a recruiter with our CAO department and see if, HR specifically, to see if that could be something that could bear some fruit for us.
Is the 5 years a civil service thing, or is it our?
It is civil service, yeah. That's either internal or external audit. So, and that's all I had for this go round.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments?
No public comments, Chair.
Okay. No other matters. Seeing no objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned at 10:44. Thank you.
Thank you.